Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of What's Hot with Sea of Tranquility. Today, we've got perhaps my most anticipated release of the year, maybe some of yours as well. Just came out about a week ago. The brand new CD or LP or whatever format you get it from Opeth from Sweden, In Cauda Venenum. All right, this is the fourth studio release from Sweden's Opeth since they have decided to move on from their progressive death metal style from early in their career into much more of a classic 70s style progressive rock, hard rock, space rock, psychedelic rock, folk rock, that whole they've kind of encompassed all those styles, which they always had in their music, right? They just kind of weeded out the death metal part of it, kept all the rest, amped up the 70s feel, and you've got, a couple albums now that have gone more in that style, right? You've got this all started, you could start to see the change with like Ghost Reveries and Watershed from 2005 and 2008, although still plenty of death metal on those albums, but it was with 2011's Heritage, Pale Communion in 2014, Sorceress in 2016, and now In Cauda Venenum here in 2019. So, what's the story with this album, you might ask, right? Well, if you've liked the last couple, it's not that far removed from there, but just as, still as interesting musically and complex and still mixing like kind of all those styles that we love so much from the band. Here, this new release, it's actually a double disc set. You may ask, Pete, why is it a double disc set? What do we got that's extra on here? Well, originally, the concept of this album, pretty neat cover art, I think, and on the back, the original concept of this was to record it in Swedish, in the Swedish language, right? Mikael Ackerfelt's initial idea was, we're going to do a Swedish album, okay, all in our native tongue. But of course, then decided, well, that's for all of our non-Swedish speaking fans, might be a bit jarring, right? So why don't we also translate the Swedish lyrics into English and split the release up? You get one disc in Swedish, one disc in English. So that's kind of what we have here, right? Either or is really good. Okay, it's funny because if you're not like really paying attention to the vocals and the lyrics, you may not tell much of a difference. You may not find much of a difference if you're not really honing in on them. But I will say, Mr. Ackerfelt's got a great vocal style. I love his voice, no matter whether he's singing in Swedish or in English. So both versions are actually really, really good. You'll hear some little subtle differences here and there if you're going to put them back to back and what have you. But I'm basically going to talk about the English one, obviously. Some heavy moments on here. There's a lot of kind of like what I want to call space rock on here. Okay, so for all you kind of like Pink Floyd and Hawkwind fans and maybe Eloy, some cool moments of interesting keyboard work and synths and mellotrons and electric piano and all that kind of stuff. You've got some, like I said, some muscular tracks on here, but again, those little folky bits and proggy bits of the atmosphere, all woven into almost every track on here. So the current members of the band, obviously, let's talk about that. We got Mikael Ackerfeldt on guitars, lead vocals, Martin Mendez on bass. Martin's been around for quite a long time, over 20 years. Martin Axenrot, also called Axe, on drums. He's also been with the band for, not 13 years now, I think. Frederick Akesson on guitars and backing vocals, also been in the band since 2007. And Joachim Svalberg on keyboards, synths, piano, mellotron, backing vocals. He's actually been in the lineup since 2011. So he's been toiling around the band for a while. So what do we got in here? So it kicks off with this kind of really cool, creepy, proggy, like synth and keyboard intro called The Garden of Earthly Delights, which I really dig quite a bit. It kind of sets the mood for the whole album. And then comes right into Dignity, which Dignity is one of the tunes they released a little early on, so probably a lot of you have already heard that song. Really good song, one of the heavier tracks on the album. That moves into Heart in Hand, which might be my favorite song on the album. What I like about it so much is that it just kind of encompasses all these styles. It's got the heavy riffing and great, weaving guitar lines, and all the different kind of proggy keyboards, little bits of folk, lots of psych, the great vocals. It's just a really, really good tune. Next of Kin is also very cool. All right, another really, again, those first like 3 main tracks, pretty heavy hitting, but a lot of different textures and feels to them. Lovelorn Crime, more of kind of like a little folky, ballad sort of thing, like nice haunting vocals, keyboard textures on there. Then you got Charlatan. All right, another neat tune that's got little bits of everything. There's also some quirky like Canterbury. If you're a fan of like the Canterbury jazz stuff, little bits of jazzy, proggy type things. There's a lot of that going on in this album, and especially in the next song, Charlatan. Got Universal Truth, also has some of those little bits. The Garroter, it's got little bits of jazz and folk in it. Same thing with Continuum. All right. Again, a lot of these last couple tracks that I mentioned, just a little bit different for the band. There's moments of bombast, certainly, but they're really kind of honing in on that like early 70s prog vibe. And again, I mentioned the little bits of jazz and folk and pop, giving a hint of like the Canterbury bands, like, Hatfield in the North and stuff like that. Really interesting, very different. And then it kind of closes everything out with All Things Will Pass, which is a great tune. Okay, just a menacing track that it's heavy in spots. Okay, it's got lots of prog, a lot of cool atmospheres and lots of different textures. Just really good. Great vocals. All right, great rhythms on the whole album. I mean, it's just masterful stuff. But it's not one of those albums that you play once and you're like, totally grabbed me from the beginning. Because it took me about 4 listens for this to really, really start to sink in. Because you got to take it in kind of like stages, right? It's not one of those albums that you listen all the way through and like, okay, I can perfectly speak about every single track on there. Because after like the first 3 or 4 listens, I was like, all right, I think the first 3 or 4 tunes have settled in, but I still haven't grasped the last couple, which probably for the last 2 days, it took me multiple listens to kind of say, all right, I think I can actually speak of this album and realize why I like it so much, right? But it's I like the production. Again, you got people all over the internet who are like, oh, I don't like the production of this album or the last one. I don't understand why. To me, there's a lot of warmth on this album. The heavy stuff is in your face. But the arrangements, man, just so intricate. I mean, Ackerfeld is just like a genius. The way he kind of crafts all these melodies and all these little different styles around each other. I just dig it. I dig it a lot. And, I'm sure we're going to get people here who are going to be like, oh, I can't listen to Opeth anymore. Bring back the death metal growls. It's not happening, man. It's not happening. He has long moved on from that. He wanted to move away from that even before they actually did. So it's like you either accept it and grow with the band and enjoy it, or you don't, So if you're coming on here and watching my review and you're going to say, oh, this album sucks, no death metal growls, well, what can I tell you? But for those of you who never liked the death metal growls, and they have a lot of fans that fall into that camp that always kind of liked Opeth but couldn't get past what they call the Cookie Monster vocals, all right? This new stuff is just hitting a lot of sweet spots. And I like both eras, all right? I love the early, death metal Opeth. I really did. And I still do. I still can listen to any of those albums and totally love them. But I like this direction too. I'm fine with it. This is one of those instances of a band who totally, and they didn't totally change their style. All they did was change the vocal styles because a lot of the music is very similar. Maybe not as heavy hitting as some of those early albums, but there's plenty of heaviness on this album. There's just more of the kind of the lighter, proggier things that they were doing. So it's, kind of switch the tides, turn the tides around. Early on, tons of heavy riffage and intricate, sledgehammer parts, woven with bits of atmosphere and folk and prog and all that kind of stuff, little jazzy bits, and as well as the clean vocals versus the growling vocals. Now the growling vocals are totally gone. Clean vocals reign supreme, and those sledgehammer heavy riffs are there, but it's just not as much, and a lot of the more intricate textured stuff is there. So I dig it. It's cool. It's great music. No matter, you look at Opeth's career, man, no stumbling anywhere. So I dig it. For me, this is one of the releases of the year right here. It's shot right up to the top, so we'll see where it all where it all ends in the end of 2019. And but for me, this is going to be one of my favorites of the year. I guarantee it. I'm loving it, loving it, loving it. This is on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course. We're here on YouTube all the damn time. So check out the full review on the website. All right. I talk about every track pretty in depth, a little more than I did here, and read up on that. But hopefully you already have this if you're a fan. If you're on the fence, give it a listen. It's quite good, I think. So we'll see you guys in a couple days, going away on a business trip to Washington, D.C. I'm not going to be able to get anything done while I'm there, so we'll pick back up on Thursday. Have a good couple days, guys, and we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.